Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into a seriously grim, dark Gothic fable. We'll be taking a philosophical deep dive into the terrifying evolution of a figure known simply as the Crow. We're going to trace its agonizing arc from a passive observing consciousness into a horrifying physical instrument of cosmic finality. If you love dissecting texts where philology meets dark Nietzschean philosophy, you are absolutely going to love this one.
We've got 4 chapters mapping our descent today: the subverted superego, the metabolic harvest, the manifest judge, and finally, the final accounting. Let's get right into it.
All right, Chapter 1, the subverted superego.
So our journey actually kicks off high atop the Fragile Glass Library, and here we meet the Crow, right? But not as a physical beast just yet. It acts as a philological zeitgeist, literally the spirit of the time, but it's functioning as this darkly subverted psychological superego. Instead of guiding the seeker toward some moral high ground, it's just mirroring the silent, unforgiving void ledger, meticulously tallying up every single broken vow in the dark. At this early stage, the Crow is just terrifyingly passive. The text calls it the eye that does not turn away. I mean, just imagine the crushing psychological weight of that unblinking gaze, silently documenting all the messy, kinetic noise of a human life as it stumbles through all these nihilistic traps. And this unyielding gaze, it creates what we can call an observational ground zero. It's a psychological state that perfectly, mathematically mirrors the zero-point matrix of the void ledger itself. The internal mind of the seeker and the external cosmic reality are completely, perfectly aligned here.
So, what's the big takeaway from this initial stage? Well, both the Crow and that monolithic register serve one unified purpose: to prepare a human life to be completely stilled. They take all that crushing weight of a person's identity and transform it into a concluded narrative, a story so totally finished that it literally requires absolutely nothing more from the universe.
Which brings us to Chapter 2, the metabolic harvest.
Now, that passive observation eventually has to give way to a horrifying process known as the Black Harvest. If we look at the philological roots of the word metabolism, it implies a being thrown beyond. So the Crow isn't just passively eating here. It's undergoing this agonizing evolution by aggressively consuming the psychological ruins of failed human philosophies. And this is where we hit that heavy Nietzschean transformation. The Crow strips away the clinical, sterile data of the last thinker. But that data doesn't just vanish. No, it is violently converted into cynical knowledge. That becomes the raw metabolic fuel propelling the Crow's terrifying evolution forward.
Now, this whole harvest process runs totally parallel to the Sapphire Forge, which, you might remember, industrially recycles the chaotic thermodynamic noise of distilled souls. Just as the Forge recycles raw energy, the Crow is utilizing that cynical narrative inertia, shifting from a passive observer into a living, breathing participant in the unmaking.
The consequences of all this are absolutely devastating. By feeding directly on the custodian's oversight, the Crow ensures that the cold, hard arithmetic of the void actively contributes to the unmaking. It completely sets the stage to shatter the human fetish of form, proving once and for all that clinging to a physical, individual identity is just a fragile illusion.
Moving right along to Chapter 3, the manifest judge.
So, the Crow has now gorged itself on the data of the cyber-enhanced arachnid custodian. Because of this, it becomes manifest. Getting back to our philology, to manifest literally means to be made palpable by the hand. This is the exact moment the boundary shatters. The internal psychological struggle of that subverted superego has just crossed over into a horrifying, undeniable physical reality.
And this right here completes the Crow's entire ontological arc. We've traced its evolution from a detached, observing consciousness at ground zero to an active consumer of narrative inertia, and finally arriving at step 3. It is now a fully manifest register of the cost, standing right beside the knight at the vacant throne.
But what's the actual purpose of this physical manifestation? Well, the Crow now acts as an ontological bridge between internal thought and external reality. By gathering up this immense density of despair, it prepares the seeker's deepest internal gods, memory, reason, and will, for the brutal industriality that's waiting in the dark.
And that brings us to the very bottom of our descent.
Chapter 4, The Final Accounting.
0. Just 0. This single number perfectly represents the arithmetic of the void. It's the ultimate zero-point matrix, the exact destination where the sovereign deed is finally executed. Everything the crow has observed, metabolized, and manifested culminates right here in this single chilling digit.
And the mechanism for this final execution is the violet gavel. Interestingly, philologically speaking, the word ledger connects to a place of resting. But make no mistake, there is absolutely no peace to be found here. The text explicitly tells us that the strike of the violet gavel functions with the brutal, absolute, industrial finality of a hydraulic press slamming the void ledger shut. This final accounting forces us to confront a deeply tragic Nietzschean subversion. We have to look at this agonizing evolution and ask ourselves, does this final act result in a total regression of the human into a mere man-beast? Or, in the destruction of that old form, are we actually witnessing the forged creation of a savage new purpose? It's a massive philosophical tension that the text deliberately leaves us grappling with.
But regardless of where you land on that philosophical outcome, the mechanical reality is certain. With the crushing strike of that gavel, the chaotic, struggling narrative of the seeker is reduced to a silent line item. It is brutally and, to quote the text directly, perfectly finished. In the profound, heavy silence that follows this dark arithmetic, the crow's job is finally done. It documents a final, absolute nothingness, a perfection of a nothingness that matches the ledger's infinite grid of silent blue stars flawlessly. The kinetic noise of life has been entirely stilled.
As we close this dark ledger on today's explainer, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to chew on. If we view the crow as the ultimate mirror to our own psychological superegos, when your own internal gods of memory, reason, and will are eventually subjected to the inevitable violent gavel, what truly remains of your own crushing weight of identity? What is actually left of your fetish of form? Thanks for exploring this dark fable with me. I'll catch you in the next one.